Hey guys, it's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Transfer Roundup. So, we've got quite a bit to get through. We left off with Angry Titans as stand-ins for the Mayhem Winter Classic tournament, so we will carry on from there, and we have Zihi, who is a support, Chinese support, who is signed for T1W.GZA, that's the Guangzhou Charge Academy in China, if you didn't know. He had some time with Bubble Burster Gaming, but he will be rolling out for the Guangzhou Academy in Contenders, China. Moving on, and there's a lot of full team movements here, so it's going to be a really interesting one. But we have got a bunch of players signed by Neutral Break Gaming X. This is 3 DPS players, Enriquex, LSY, and MJS. We have 2 tank players, Memory and Maggie. 2 support players, Red Fox and Rexy. This is a mix of Chinese and Korean players. We have seen Neutral Break Gaming X taking part in the seeding competition for Contenders China 2020. They didn't get very far, but they did play in that. So, moving on, and we move to Triumph next, who have let go Chop, the American support player, and the British DPS player, Linux. Also, Zhao has left HSL in Europe. He will be rolling out for Triumph next season, along with Hello, I'm Halo, who is moving from Second Wind to Triumph as well. I'm not doing well with this video today. Also, Triumph have signed Hydron and Milky Man. Milky Man you might know from what was Team Giganti. Obviously, we suffered the terrible loss of Team Giganti at the end of last year. It was very unfortunate news just before Christmas. But then we move on to some changes in the Overwatch League. Now, these two had been, one of these had been rumoured for quite a while. It's 2 signings of the LA Valiant. It is the Korean support player Rain and the American tank player Gig. Rain used to play for the Florida Mayhem and O2 Blast in Korea. And Gig used to play for XL2 Academy before XL2 Academy basically said that they weren't going to take part in Contenders NA, this coming year. So that's 2 signings for the LA Valiant. Also, we have a signing at the Paris Eternal, who have rounded out their squad with the young and beautiful support player FD God. Another Frenchman coming into the Paris squad, and it is obviously a clarity on the fact that they really want to go down this mixed roster route with the skillful Koreans they've got from the likes of Element Mystique, but also keep that French blood in them and a bit of that British blood as well. There's quite a bit of British blood in Paris, actually. Quite interesting. Moving on to Clockwork Vendetta in Contenders EU, and we have Sky Reaper, who has been let go from that roster. They will be coming up again in a minute, Clockwork Vendetta. Also, HSL's Academy have let go of the tank player White Noise. Ace of Spades has left the Tea Party team in North America. And then we move on to Mangachu, who you will remember who was rolling out for the Toronto Defiant last season in the Overwatch League. He will now be a 2-way player with their Academy team Montreal Rebellion. So I'd expect Mangachu to be playing more for Montreal Rebellion next season than the Toronto Defiant. No surprises here as the Toronto Defiant really have strengthened their DPS line in the off-season. Moving on then to more moves in NA Contenders, and this starts with Team Envy, who have let Hafikul and Numlocked leave the team. So that's their tank line kind of gone, and that's kind of disappointing because they did kind of well last season with that tank line. I really rate Hafikul. Numlock's really good as well. He's had good time in the Overwatch League with LA Valiant. And yeah, it's disappointing. Hafikul really doesn't get a break, does he? Let's be honest. And also, something else that's very surprising is the players that have been let go by the Montreal Rebellion. This is Visility, who did really well for the Dutch national team at the Overwatch World Cup. Visility is another player in Contenders that really can't catch a break. They've also let the 2 American support players Goliath and Ultraviolet go as well. This made way for an entirely new Montreal Rebellion roster, including moving in Tanzik as a manager, Dridro as a support player, French support player, Chain as the tank player from Canada, Shu from the French tank roster, Tana the American DPS, and Leaf the French DPS. Leaf you will know from the Overwatch World Cup with Team France. He had a very good showing with France during the World Cup. He will replace Facility, which is interesting. Moving back to the Overwatch League though, and this is something I did talk about yesterday, I believe, but Taimou is now confirmed to have left the Dallas Fuel. He is moving to their academy team, Team Envy. I'm actually surprised about this. I didn't expect Taimou to actually stay in competitive Overwatch. I thought he might retire and become a streamer or something. But great that Taimou is actually sticking around the Overwatch Pro scene. I'm sure Team Envy will love having him on board. I'm sure Jane will love having him on board as a content creator for Team Envy as well. And I wish Taimou all the best, and I hope he can regain some of that form that he's kind of lost at the Dallas Fuel, being on the bench all the time. So, moving on, and next up we have GOATs, and it's not the composition, thank goodness for that, but the team is back. They have let go of flex player Forgiving and tank player Boone, and they have brought in the roster tank player Iron, DPS player Zook, 2 other DPS players, My Crazy Cat and Moon Blue, the support players Derek and Nistrix, and also the support player Chipsy. So a lot of moves at GOATs. GOATs are gearing up for the Contenders season, obviously, and they want to nail down a roster prior to that season. Interesting that Moonblue also is from Hong Kong, which is very nice to see. Moving on, and we have moves at Square One staying in NA Contenders as well. They have let their manager, Koja, their coach, GG Mentality, their tank player, Jolf, and their DPS player, Dove, leave, and they have moved in the coach, Nomi. Nomi, you'll remember, who used to be a main tank for the San Francisco Shock in the Overwatch League in its inaugural season. The support player, Dino, the 2 tank players, Seni and Mac, and then the 2 DPS players, Shockwave and Dimes. It's a very, very varied roster at Square One. You've got Danish in there, you've got Canadian in there, you've got Austrian in there, you've got Netherlands in there, you've got America, and you've got Mexico. A really crazily varied roster. Really nice to see. So, we haven't visited Korea yet, so it's about time we did, and Runaway. Runaway have signed the Korean DPS player Merit from LG Huya in Contenders China. Interesting that Runaway aren't going fully down the route of a kind of academy players like they used to. They seem to be more kind of like picking out of different teams now. They've got some Overwatch League players in there as well. I think this is just a reaction to some of the Korean teams just getting darn fed up with basically having to completely rebuild their roster every Overwatch League season because they get pilfered by Overwatch League teams. But moving on and talking of Overwatch League, do you remember the support player Persia who was playing for Boston Uprising last season? He is no longer playing for the Boston Uprising. He left the Boston Uprising and now he has confirmed his retirement from competitive Overwatch. He will not be featuring for any team in the future unless he comes out of retirement. We wish Persia all the best. Moving on now, and we have Mango Jai, who will be rolling out for Global Esports next season, moving from Talon Esports. The Hong Kong support players had actually a really good history with Talon Esports. Talon Esports did really well in Contenders and the Gauntlet, and hopefully he can do really well with Global Esports in India in the Southeast Asian region, which is nice to see us have a talk about in the Southeast Asian region. We don't often get to talk about it. Also at Talon Esports there's also been another two people let go, 2 Koreans, 1 DPS player Bashful and the tank player Gogora. So moving on, we're back to Triumph, and Triumph has signed the American DPS player Big All. Big All has had time at Square One recently. He has then moved on and is now going to be running out for Triumph in this contender season. It's going to be interesting to see NA Contenders when the seeding comes around, because I think NA Contenders could be a really interesting season in NA Contenders. Really, really, really interesting. So I can't wait for that seeding tournament. But moving on, and Young and Beautiful in Contenders EU have let go 2 players, the tank player Fierce and the support player Blue X. They are now unassigned. And lastly, I told you we'd be coming back to Clockwork Vendetta, and here we are. Clockwork Vendetta have now announced their official, or most of their official roster. They kind of had a temporary roster for the Breakable Barriers and the Mayhem Winter Classic tournaments, but they've now kind of gone ahead and named their roster. They kept Ricky, Monk Matter, but they've also added in now Linex, who we talked about just now, Morsi, Helv, Sir Majd, Chucky Milk, and Cronus. That will complete the lineup for Clockwork Vendetta, probably going into Contenders Europe fully now, I would imagine. They've got 3 support players, 2 tank players, and 3 DPS players. It's a very nicely well-rounded team. And I tell you what, Clockwork, I love the British representation. I also love to see a Saudi Arabian in there as well. Really nice roster, and I will be keeping an eye on Clockwork Vendetta in this coming season. I wish them all the best in upcoming Contenders 2020 and the seeding tournament. But that rounds us off for transfers for today. Now, if my brain is correct, there are 2 videos coming out today. Later on, there will be quite a lengthy video talking about the patch and, yeah, stuff going on with Overwatch. The past week, past few days, Twitter and that has gone absolute meltdown in terms of some of the stuff said by the devs and stuff like that. It's time to go over it. It's time to talk about balance. It's time to talk about what we mean by a meta and what we mean by balance, because in my opinion, you cannot have balance if you have a meta. Anyway, that's for another video. That will probably be coming out later on today, and then we have got to get into some Overwatch League team roundups, which is going to be really, really interesting. And there's going to be 20 of them, obviously, because there's 20 teams in the Overwatch League. We start off with the Atlanta Reign. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.